What is up, guys? It is just another random Tom here. How's your day going? Today is November 11th, 2018. This is Veterans Day. Want to know the reason why Veterans Day became a national holiday? It was to celebrate the ending of World War I. But as we would soon find out, that is not necessarily the case. A lot of facts that you did not know about World War I. Let's get started. Only the armistice was signed on November 11th at 11 o'clock in 1918, not the actual treaty. Fighting ended after that day. Originally, Veterans Day was actually known as Armistice Day, to mark November 11, 1918 as the day that Germany signed the armistice to end World War I. Not the treaty though. Eventually, Congress passed a resolution in 1926 for a National Observance Day, and in 1938 it officially became a national holiday in the United States. And in 1954, Dwight D. Eisenhower officially renamed it to Veterans Day to not only mark all of the troopers from World War I, but also with World War II and all the veterans onward, living or dead. Journalism at that time was an all-time risk. Free speech was suppressed for the Allies. In the United States and Great Britain, journalists were forced to propagate news that would boost morale and provide high favorability of war with Germany. Really, the only opposition to war was from the Socialist Party. However, this left World War I journalists censored on the front line, also being banned from reporting. In Britain, execution was a possibility if journalists were ever caught. Even though a lot of people were dying in World War I, do you know that close to 1/3 of the deaths actually occurred from disease, but not any disease? The infamous Spanish flu. Since Spain remained neutral in the war, and they contracted all of the sicknesses, which actually turned out to be an H1N1 virus of the flu, Spain reported on that with massive consent because America and Britain actually found out about this first. It was the first modern war that 2/3 of all deaths attributed to World War I actually occurred during combat, not by disease. At that time, it was just on the brink of discovering what really caused diseases. Now, this is also the first modern war, but nobody used modern war tactics like guerrilla war. They used old tactics with new technology. It's extremely devastating when people mow down other people's lines and formations with freaking machine guns and tanks, as you will soon see. You need to fix those injuries. Here's the next part. Plastic surgery, as we know, was invented during World War I. During the chaos of the war, a military surgeon named Arnold Gillies tended to those with severe disfigurements with tactics that would eventually pioneer the modern steps needed to reconstruct a human face by using specialized silicone. Yes, guys, plastic surgery was kind of modernized during World War I. Here's another revolutionary thing that happened during that time that also involved medical science. Early chemotherapy was developed by using a product of mustard gas used in the trenches of World War. There was really only one true sea battle during the war, and that was at the Battle of Jutland. Every single imperialist country had dreadnoughts, huge battleships, and they did not want to use them. But on that ill-fated day, German and British ships met. German citizens criticized the war effort and they wanted out of it, like right away. Strikes and demonstrations were prevalent by the end of the First World War. Britain blockaded the seaports scattered around the German Empire, which starved its people of goods and supplies. In the midst of the economy collapsing, the people were starving, and the German Navy suffered a major mutiny close to the end of the war. Do you know there is still an area in France that is uninhabitable? Zone Rogue is the area of land on the northeastern side of France, by the borders of Germany, Luxembourg, and Belgium, which consists of mainly trenches and dangers from the First World War. There is arsenic, lead, mercury, landmines, you name it, it's there. At the end of the First World War, the French government quarantined that entire area and they let nature take its course without taking away everything. There was more than one global war going on at the time of World War I. There were actually 5 major interventions at the time that did not involve the main World War, including the Caribbean occupation because the United States at that time wanted to enforce the Monroe Doctrine, Roosevelt's coronary. They wanted to prove to the imperialist nations that they are in fact in charge of the Americas. Now, some of the wars that were going at the time was the Mexican Revolution, and a little subsidiary about that is also known as the Mexican Border Wars, with Pancho Villa raiding all of the American towns. Do you know why exactly America hated the USSR? You heard of the Red Scare with the McCarthy era, which was between 1948 and 1953. Just some general dates, but then that's actually the second Red Scare. There was actually a first one. Russia went into revolution. They had two revolutions. They had the February Revolution, and depending on what calendar you're using, they also had the October Revolution, or what if you use the Julian calendar, it's on the 5th of November. Remember the 5th of November, when the Bolsheviks took over the government and they ruled all of Russia and caused a civil war. Now, during that time, the Czechoslovak region trapped in Russia caused a natural coalition to get them out of there. The Czechoslovak region trapped in Russia had a long way to go. During that time, American soldiers were wondering why they were still fighting in Russia when they heard the war was over back in November. We find out now that the war wasn't really over. It was really Operation Polar Bear. In the First World War, the very first Christmas of the war, both sides, German/Austria-Hungary and the Allies, actually stopped fighting. They drank beer, they hung out with each other, and they even played football. But by the next year, there were no warm hugs and cheers all around the trenches. Instead, it's shell shock and the sight of cannons. A group of Russian and German soldiers agreed to cease fire upon each other to fend off a horde of hungry wolves. Many of the men went to fight off the war. Women had to take over a lot of the jobs, and one of them was the TNT industry. Women's skin turns yellow after working with toxic substances in TNT. Tanks, just like ships, had genders. Yep, you heard me right. You thought that the topic was being debated in 2018 exclusively. But 100 years back, names were given to battle tanks in Britain, such as the First Tank, Black Bess, and Little Willie, during the first uses on the trenches, famously debuting at the Battle of the Somme. Usually male tanks had cannons, while the female tanks had machine guns. Soon, Germany developed Big Bertha, a 48-ton behemoth howitzer which mowed down enemy fighters with its 1-ton shells. Here's something that's really odd and a strange coincidence at the same time. The Archduke of Austria-Hungary, Franz Ferdinand, had a license plate that dated the end of the war. Hear me out. The assassination of the Archduke was considered by many to be a fated encounter, with many ill-destined coincidences occurring. The last of these occurrences happened at the end of combat, when it was discovered that on the car the Archduke was riding in when he and his wife were assassinated read a license plate that said A111118, which, if interpreted right, can abbreviate the words Armistice 11, November 18, as in 1918. How strange is that? The word dogfight originated in World War I, not in World War II as you might be led to believe. Planes, just like cars and tanks, were brand new to the war strategy. Now, air supremacy was a brand new frontier for people to conquer and gain a foothold on. Before 1917, let's say, planes were used as observers to relay to ground troops the terrain, just like hot air balloons in the Civil War of the United States. Even in the beginning of the war, it was occasional and common for a German pilot and Allied pilots to wave at each other. However, as the war went on, things didn't look as friendly. Soon afterward, machine guns were strapped to planes from the side with a gunner, and later on the front of the plane, synchronized with the rotation speed of the propeller so that way you wouldn't strike your own plane down. When a pilot turned off the engine to not stall the plane during the tight maneuver, they would restart the engine during freefall, making a noise similar to a dog growling or barking. And that is where the original dogfights come from. It was machine guns and the engines roaring like dogs. World War I brought the US out of submission and isolation, turning into a global superpower. After World War I, the Germans' population fertility rate fell so much that right after, only 1 in 3 young women found a husband to marry. Now, that is kind of misleading, that it's not necessarily fertility rate, that the number of kids being born, more or less it's the amount of marriages or suitable men that women can find. The opposite is happening in China, where due to the one-child policy, since men and boys are favored more than women and girls, now 1 in 4 Chinese men who live in China cannot find a suitable mate. Just wanted to bring that up to you. Germany only fully paid its reparations from the Treaty of Versailles to what is left of the Allied powers in 2010. A Portuguese soldier miraculously convinced an incoming army of Germans that they were about to confront a grand army. Milas stood up with his Lewis machine gun and defeated, almost single-handedly, 2 German assaults by laying down intense fire. The first death and the last death of the war were both British soldiers buried just 15 feet away from each other. But basically that's it. Anyways, guys, I'm just another random Tom. I really hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you want some more of these types of videos. And I'll see you guys later. Peace out.